But the thing that I thought was really cool and was really pleased to snag this for $5 is this task light, this work light. I spotted this thing right away and I thought, oh, that might be a neat light. You know, even the ones that are kind of the ordinary ones, if they're complete and you know, if they've got an issue or whatever, you can rewire them and you can even convert them to LED fairly easily, and they become really great lights as long as the arms are in good condition. This one has got a lot going on for it, and it's a really unique one, and I'll show you some of the features. But the first thing I noticed was this is how I bought it, and it was wrapped with the cord. Got the 3-prong grounded cord, and it's not broken off. It's the original cord, it's in good shape. Big plus right there. But you see all these springs and everything. As soon as I uncoiled this thing, it kind of went out of control and just opened right up. It's got spring assist to move the arm. A lot of these have this style of mount, like this, that. Okay, so you just got this pin on the bottom here. So oftentimes you'll find these at flea markets and yard sales or whatever, and all you'll see is this pin right here, and that's because the light was designed to be used with a bracket like this. This is the original bracket. It's not broken and it's not missing. It's present, which is great. So this allows you to clamp this to like a drafting table or something like that back in the day. And then you just slide the light in, and when you want to get the light out of your way or like move the table or whatever, instead of undoing the clamp, you can just pull that out. So that makes that really useful. If you find one of these and the clamp's missing, chances are you're going to get it for next to nothing. You're a handy enough person, more than likely, that you can make yourself something easy enough so that you can you know, put it on your lathe or over on your mill or whatever. So you just clamp this onto your workbench or table. So this is a Luxo color correct, and it says the Luxo Lamp Company of Port Chester, New York and Sausalito, California. So it's made in the USA, and if you need any more proof of that, how cool is this little sticker? That little sticker right there says Union Made, and then in the circle in tiny letters it says it's the Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is the union. That's kind of a neat bit of history there. So of course the other surprise about this one is that this is a dual fluorescent ring and incandescent bulb. That's why the shade was so big. When I first picked it up, I saw the back here. We've got some interesting buttons. Even the switch on this old light is pretty cool. What we've got is we've got a center switch to shut off whatever's turned on. So if I turn on the fluorescent and I want to shut it off, boom. And if I turn on the incandescent and I want to shut it off, boom. You hit the same light and it'll shut it off. Even if this wasn't working, I was going to still take it because I was going to just convert it over to LED. But the other added bonus about this thing is that it actually works. That switch there turns on the incandescent light socket in the center, which is a standard light socket. So I'll be able to change that out easy enough. What I figure I'll do is I'll get a LED bulb and stick it in there. And then the white button, if you just press it, nothing happens, because what you have to do, and like on a lot of these, if you're not familiar with these, you press and hold the button down, and that preheats the I forget the technical term, but basically it takes the place of the starter in regular fluorescent light fixtures. See that glowing? Release, boom. Works perfect. Have no idea how old that bulb is. I know those bulbs, some of these round bulbs can get kind of pricey, but this one still works. So in this box down here on the bottom, there's some sort of a ballast, more than likely. Either that, or I don't know if it's inside. Yeah, there's not really any room in there, up in here for it, so it's got to be down here as the ballast for the fluorescent light. So over on the other side of my basement over there, I put in regular recessed lighting cans up between the floor joists, and initially I had these compact fluorescent bulbs. these type of compact fluorescents. They're the, you know, the pigtail curly Q shape, and then they just put it in a package like this. And I had these over there, and they were okay, but when you first turn them on, especially if it's a little cool down here in the basement, it takes a while for them to come up to full light. And then I was at the Restore, which is run by Habitat for Humanity, and they have all kinds of cheap stuff there. And they had these, not sure what brand these are. These are Max LED by Max Light, BR30. These are even dimmable. So I have these in those fixtures over there now, and they're fantastic. They throw a lot more light, and they're instant on, and they use less electricity. So I changed all of those over. I like those so much that I even started changing those. I changed over the ones in my kitchen upstairs that were all fluorescents like this. Actually, the ones in the kitchen, because they were on a dimmer, they were the incandescent lights, floodlights, or whatever you call them. So those were real power hungry. Now I changed them over to all of these dimmable ones. This, I just when I took the compact fluorescents out, they were still perfectly good, and I hated to throw them out, so I just put them in the boxes there. But since I've got one, actually several, figure what the heck, I'll just change this over for now to one of these. You see how dull that is? Like some of my videos? What? No. But anyways, if we leave that on long enough, it'll actually come up. Yeah, so the thing that I can't get over on this light is this whole, the arm structure, the double beam and all of this is so well made. It's just like balanced perfectly. It just stays where you want to put it. So I know you're probably thinking, wow, what a big deal I'm making out of this. But I mean, when you think about it, you think about the engineering that went into this is really kind of the bee's knees. I mean, the mass of this lamp head is not changing, but as I reposition and do different things with the position of this light, the tension on these springs must be changing. And yet, this thing, there you go, that light's throwing, now you can see that's really throwing some light. But anyways, you know, it stays right where I want it to stay. If I fully extend it out, it stays. If I bring it in really close, it stays. Or bring it up really high, it stays. It's just a cool design. And it's simple, yet very effective. You can see how much light that's throwing. Compare that to the old fluorescent. Quite a bit less. So I like that light. And for $5, can you blame me? Well, by now some of you are probably wondering already, all right, Steve, when are you going to get to this free item that you think is so cool? All right, so without further ado, I mean, let me just get my hernia on over here and get this thing over here. That thing feels like it weighs 60 or 75 pounds, but this rusty, dirty thing was just sitting there on the floor, and I have no idea where it came from. So there's absolutely no doubt who makes it. There's a plaque right here. I'll get a close-up of that in a moment. But this is the Federal Products Corporation of Providence, Rhode Island, USA. I've, you know, obviously got a ton of indicators made by Federal. I've gotten other things over the years made by Federal. Matter of fact, out of the May estate sale series, way early on, I ended up getting a really nice indicator stand, really heavy duty one made by Federal, and I also have the electronic indicator that's like from the 1960s with that, and maybe we'll play with that down the road at some point. But so the early Federal stuff was good quality stuff. This thing, you know, my first thought was it's some sort of a height gauge. But since going online and trying to find out exactly what this thing would be called, and also try and get an idea of what, if any, value it has, I found one of these described as a bench micrometer. So, you know, typically you're used to seeing bench micrometers that lay down, and you know, so you're the way that it's set up. Well, let me show you. So this is my Mitutoyo bench micrometer, and this is how you typically see these bench micrometers oriented in the horizontal axis. So that's what made me think that this wasn't a bench micrometer. You also tend to see micrometer stands, which are designed, again, to sit on the bench and hold a regular micrometer by its frame. And again, you're still going to be in this orientation here, not this orientation. And there's nothing to indicate that this was ever made to be used this way, because of the way that this cap gets in the way here, and there were little rubber feet on the bottom here clearly indicating it would be this way, and they didn't bother putting any on here. So this is supposed to be used like this. This clearly is supposed to be used vertically. But again, I did find it referred to as a bench micrometer. So you guys who are the experts out there, maybe you want to chime in, let me know what you think, whether or not this is a more of a height gauge or a bench micrometer. If this is a bench micrometer, then this block on the bottom right here, which looks like it can be removed and maybe replaced with something else if necessary, would be an anvil. Now, before we get too far along, let me try and get you a better look at that tag. So interesting also, it says that it's a model 120-B1, but it also, if you notice, it doesn't say model number. It says identify as model 120-B1. That makes me wonder whether or not this was something that was a very low production run or custom made for some manufacturer that had a very specific use for it, and that the identify as 120B1 was just so that the manufacturer could keep track of it through the manufacturing and process, and also for, I don't know, warranty or whatever. So we've got this little block here with surface rust on it, unfortunately, that would act as like the anvil. It's interesting to me that it has these dovetails on it, which makes me wonder whether or not there weren't actually maybe hold downs that could go on here. Say you had a round part and you wanted to just place it on here and keep it from rolling. Well, that wouldn't make sense though, would it? Why would you put a round part underneath this? Well, I guess you could, and you could move it until you got the high spot reading. Yeah, that seems counterintuitive, so I'm not quite sure. Well, actually, just occurred to me. I could see the little triangles, so the ends of these grooves, these little V grooves here on the bottom. That's what these little screws are engaging into, apparently, to keep this in here. So it appears to me this is made to be flipped. So I wonder what's on the other side. I wonder if it's just another flat, or whether or not there's some other surface on the other side there. It's not a V groove for holding a round piece, because there's no notch on the end there. Oh well, I'm not going to touch that. Let me just show this real quick. There is a little sticker with what looks like a number 1 on it. I wonder whether or not this was at a yard sale or a tag sale or something, and marked for $1. Could you imagine if you're a machinist tool junkie like me and you walked up to a yard sale and you were one of the early birds and you saw this there marked for $1? That'd be a good day, I would think. So let's look at the anatomy of this, these major adjustments on it first. So there's a big knob right here that engages a rack on the column. That's unlocked by this lever here. So I unlock this, and now I can turn this, and this is my gross height adjustment of the head. So one of the mysteries about this thing that I'm having right now is this collar right here, this whole part right down here. I have no idea what the purpose of this is. Judging by the original matching paint and everything, I'm confident that it belongs on here. It wasn't like something that was just added on as an afterthought. So the knurling on these, this knob right here and this knob clearly matches the knurling on the gross adjustment, height adjustment knob. So I know this is supposed to be here. I just have no idea what it's supposed to do. It's got a slot right here, so it appears to me that if we loosen this knob right here, what you're going to have to do is rotate this over. This would have to be rotated over to this position so that the slot lines up with the rack area in order to be able to move this up. The problem is I can't get that to happen because it's hitting the anvil over here. So it almost appears to me that whatever this is for, it doesn't. This feature doesn't get used unless the anvil's not on here. But if I turn this knob, well, that knob's pretty stuck. Doesn't want to turn at all. Well, this outer one turns. All right, this outer knob looks like it might just be a locking knob for this knob, which we can't turn at all. I wonder whether or not this is actually supposed to act as a contact surface. Maybe this is. Maybe when this gets rotated over into this position, this is a stop, so that whatever you put on the anvil here, when you place it on the anvil, you back it right up to this every time. If you follow my, if you catch my drift. In other words, say I'm measuring my my widgets and checking them for precision as they come down the line, and I'm putting them on here and I'm checking that height. Maybe there's a instance where every time I put the widget on the anvil, I want it to be placed a certain location front to back here, and if I had this rotated up, over, and adjusted, I would basically put this on the anvil, bring it right up until it's making contact with this point over here, which would be in this position right here. And that would mean that the next, when I take this off and I put the next widget up to check it, I'm placing it in the same, pretty much the same area underneath. That's the only thing I could think of as for the purpose of this. So let's take a look at the head on this thing. We've got up on the top here, we've got this big knob. It looks like just a big giant micrometer. Okay. Reminds me of like the adjustment on like one of those MicroMaster height stands. So you can see the graduations here. So this is pretty straightforward, but I think that this is moving a lot more stiffly than it's supposed to, which is what's part of my problem as far as why this doesn't move as nicely as it should. This thing's gonna need a little bit of care. But what's interesting to me is this adjustment moves this holder that actually is holding this this indicator. Now, my first thought was, oh, well, that's just a drop indicator that they've got mounted in there. But then when I looked at this more closely, I realized, oh no, this is a completely different animal. This indicator, which by the way is a tenths indicator, it's 0.0001. This indicator, the body or frame of the indicator that holds the whole guts and everything, is actually this very unique design just for this stand. It's not like some stands where you just take a regular drop indicator and mount it in there. So this is going to be something that, you know, if I had wanted to put like a higher end indicator on here or something, I couldn't just take like a, you know, a high end drop indicator like Interrapid or something like that and stick it in here. So what I found is, the other thing that's interesting about this is, unlike a drop indicator where you would expect this rod right here to move in and out and cause the indicator needle to deflect, it's almost as if it's a drop indicator that's mounted upside down. The rod is up here, and it's touching the bottom of this micrometer part right here. So when you push up on this, we're actually raising this entire body right here is moving up, which is causing this rod or piston, it's almost like a piston on the top here, to go down and cause the needle to deflect. And this is moving nice and freely, so I'm very glad to see that this is actually working perfectly fine. As far as repeatability goes, it seems like it's doing it every single time. And it's kind of like spring loaded, so either that or it's just the gravity of whatever mass is, you know, behind this, attached to this. There's actually a rod sticking out the bottom right here that this is riding on. So every time this drops, it actually drops with enough force to cause this needle to deflect in the negative, bounce back and then come back, and every time it's coming back to the same position. If I put the 0 on there, we can see that. Pretty cool. That cleaned up pretty decent. There's some discoloration right here. And there's some kind of fogginess or something in this crystal. That's probably on the back side. If the crystal was removed, I might be able to actually clean the back of the glass. Plastic, I mean. The other possibility is that that's just the glass, the plastic has yellowed with age. But that's a kind of neat. Oh, there's actually another model number on the actual indicator itself. So the model number on the indicator is a D1KB, as in Bravo. So again, if I lock this at 0, repeating every time, that's a really good sign. When I looked at this under magnification to look at the model number, I could see there's a tiny bit of rust actually sitting on the needle itself. So moisture has definitely permeated behind this plastic lens or crystal. You know, if I wanted to do a full restoration on this, I would probably take this indicator out, send it out to an indicator repair service, and have it just gone through and a new lens or new crystal put in, and then it would be near perfect. You can see that little piston on top there. It's almost like a piston. There's a whole large diameter thing that goes down. Not at all like a drop indicator. Unique in its design. So if I turn this knob, you know, it moves the whole unit down, but it doesn't cause any deflection of the needle unless this is stopped. So if I had something under here, you know, being measured, then as I turn this, it would obviously deflect. So it's kind of interesting the way it's made. You know, not like a height gauge. You know, with a height gauge, why would you have this able to almost like float independent of this head? You know, in a more traditional height gauge, this thing would be fixed to this head, and this would move. So I'm not quite sure why this is designed this way, but it sure is a neat device. All right. Maybe at some point I'll do a restoration on this thing. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It's not really practical for me to keep this. This is clearly something that belongs in a inspection room, more than likely, at some facility that's doing more precise work than what I'm doing here. Problem with that is the condition it's in right now. It doesn't look like a precision instrument. So it would take some work to get this back to its glorious former condition. But the question is it worth doing that work to this thing? Is there much marketability for something like this? I don't know. All right, so we're going to wrap up this episode here. Take care, and please subscribe.